Welcome. Tonight we will drift back in time, far into the dry winds of ancient Egypt. You find yourself beneath the endless desert sky, where the sands stretch out in pale waves, and the Nile flows with a calm rhythm, like a slow breath from the earth itself. Our story is not of kings and queens, nor of shimmering gold, but of the countless hands, the steady footsteps, and the silent endurance of those who built the pyramids. Over the next 2 hours, we will wander through their world. We will trace the rhythm of their daily life, explore the story of a scribe who recorded their work, pause before the mysteries of their beliefs and rituals, and then rise into the world of the elite, who watched from shaded courtyards as the great monuments climbed toward the sky. There is no rush here, no urgency, only the long patience of stone, sand, and time. So let us begin. Imagine yourself at dawn, walking alongside the builders of the pyramids.
The pyramid rises slowly in the desert, stone by stone, day by day. But alongside the men who haul and carve the stones, there are others, whose work is quieter, yet equally essential. Among them is the scribe. Imagine yourself now in the cool shade of a small tent, its canvas held by wooden poles. The air is heavy with the faint scent of ink, a mixture of soot and gum, and the dry smell of papyrus rolls stacked carefully on a low table. The scribe sits cross-legged, his reed brush poised above the surface, his movements calm and deliberate. His name is recorded in no grand monument, no shining wall of hieroglyphs, yet his task is to make sure every loaf of bread, every jar of beer, and every worker present is accounted for. Without his quiet hand, the pyramid could not rise. The rhythm of his day is steady. At dawn, when the workers gather, he moves among them, carrying a wooden board with neat lines of symbols already marked. He listens carefully, checking each man's name against the register. His reed pen scratches softly as he notes who has arrived, who is missing, and who has fallen ill. It is not punishment he records, but the simple truth of numbers. If a man does not work, another must take his place. If rations are not counted, bellies will go empty. The pyramid, though grand and eternal, depends on the smallest details. Imagine yourself peering over his shoulder. You see neat rows of hieroglyphs, small birds, strokes, and signs, each brushed with ink as black as night. His handwriting is calm, without flourish. He knows that clarity matters more than beauty. Still, there is a quiet elegance in the way the characters align, as though they too march in a rhythm, like the workers along the ramp. At midday, the scribe rests in the shade. He eats his bread slowly, dipping it into a jar of beer. Around him, the air hums with voices, tools, and the groan of stone pulled along sledges. But his mind is elsewhere. He reflects on the scrolls stored in his tent, the careful records that will one day outlast even him. For him, the pyramid is not only stone, it is also memory. Each block, each day's work, each worker's presence captured on papyrus. Long after the men's voices have faded, their names will remain, brushed onto a fragile sheet, waiting to be read by future eyes. Sometimes, in the evening, he joins the overseers in their discussions. They speak not of glory, but of logistics. How many blocks were raised? How much food was distributed? How many tools must be repaired? The scribe listens quietly, making notes. His role is not to command, but to ensure that nothing is forgotten. And yet he too is human. When he leaves his tent at night, he walks slowly through the workers' village. He sees the small fires flickering, the children chasing one another, the laughter carried on the cool breeze. He knows the strain written in their muscles, the dust in their hair, the ache of their backs. He too feels the same sun, breathes the same dry air. Imagine him pausing by the riverbank, washing his hands in the dark water. The ink fades from his fingers, drifting into the current. Above, the stars shimmer silently, as though watching his quiet work. He does not think of immortality, nor of kings, but of the steady rhythm of his days, writing, recording, remembering. In his mind, perhaps he wonders, will the Pharaoh know of my name? Or will I remain only as a faint hand behind the words that speak of others? It does not trouble him long, for in the rhythm of ancient Egypt, every role matters. The men who carry stones, the women who carry water, the children who carry laughter, the scribes who carry memory. As the sun sets once more, he rolls up his papyrus, ties it with a strip of linen, and places it among the others. Another day recorded, another step closer to eternity. And so, the biography of the scribe is not written in stone, nor sung in temples. It is written in ink, in the faint strokes of a reed pen, in the quiet persistence of memory. The pyramid rises in the desert, but so too does the record of those who built it, kept safe by the gentle hand of the scribe.
The pyramid was not only stone, it was a bridge between earth and sky, between the breath of ordinary men and the eternity of the Pharaoh. Imagine yourself standing at the edge of the site, not among the workers now, but among the priests who sometimes came to bless the work. Their steps are slower, their linen robes cleaner, their gestures calm and deliberate. They carry small jars of oil, bowls of incense, and bundles of herbs. The air shifts as they arrive. A quiet hush spreads through the workers. For in Egypt, every action, even the lifting of a block, was part of a larger order, a harmony known as Ma'at. It was not only the Pharaoh who must uphold this balance. Even the simplest tasks, performed with care, joined the rhythm of the cosmos. The priest raises a small burner. Smoke curls upward, fragrant with resin and herbs. It drifts slowly in the dry air, a thread between earth and sky. Workers pause for a moment, watching, breathing the scent as it passes. The stone block beside them feels less like a burden, more like part of something sacred. In Egypt, stone itself was alive. Limestone, granite, basalt, all carried different powers. To carve them was not merely labor, but transformation. The hammering of copper chisels echoed as though striking not only matter, but eternity. Imagine walking with the priest as he traces a hand along the rough surface of a block. His voice is low, chanting words that invoke protection. He speaks of how the stone will rest for thousands of years, holding up the weight of the sky itself. His fingers leave a faint trail of dust, which he wipes away gently, as if soothing a living body. At times, small offerings were buried near the foundations. Bowls of grain, jars of beer, tiny clay figurines, symbols of nourishment, of life, of continuity. These humble gifts, placed in silence, carried the hope that the pyramid would not only stand,
but also breathe, feeding the pharaoh's soul on its endless journey. Imagine kneeling at the base of the pyramid as such an offering is set into the sand. You see the small flame of a lamp flickering, its light pale against the vast stone wall. You hear the murmur of a prayer, spoken not loudly, but softly, as if meant only for the ears of the gods. There is mystery, too, in the alignment of the pyramid. The stars above, precise and steady, guided its shape. The Great Bear, the Belt of Orion, the North Star, silent markers in the sky, reflected in stone on the earth. The builders did not see randomness in the heavens. They saw order, a map of eternity. By aligning their pyramid with the stars, they drew the heavens downward, fixing them into the desert's stillness. Imagine yourself at night, lying on the sand beside the rising pyramid. The blocks are dark in the starlight, their edges sharp against the sky. Above you, countless stars shimmer, arranged in a pattern older than memory. You feel a calm certainty that the work of human hands mirrors the structure of the heavens. The workers themselves shared in smaller rituals. A song sung while pulling a block was more than rhythm, it was offering. Bread shared at midday was not only food, it was a symbol of life sustained. Even laughter at dusk, echoing through the village, was part of Ma'at, the balance of the world, the binding of community. Some mysteries endure. Archaeologists have uncovered marks inside the pyramids, red ochre inscriptions, names of work gangs, simple sketches left on hidden walls. They are not grand texts, but everyday graffiti. The friends of Khufu, the drunkards of Minkare, ordinary men leaving their trace, knowing their sweat would vanish, but hoping their humor, their small humanity, might last. Imagine running your fingers along such a mark, a small red hieroglyph hidden behind tons of stone. You can almost hear the laughter of the man who painted it, late at night, knowing that his joke would sleep in silence for thousands of years. The pyramid is thus both eternal and fragile. It stands as stone, but it breathes with memory, smoke, offering, laughter, and faith. It is a place where the living served the dead, but also where the dead gave meaning to the lives of the living. And so the mystery continues. Was the pyramid a tomb, a ladder, a prayer in stone, or all of these at once? We may never know completely. But when the sun rises over its golden face, or when the stars trace their endless circles above it, we sense the same stillness that the workers once felt, the stillness of eternity, pressing gently against the rhythm of their days.
The sun climbs steadily, filling the desert air with shimmering waves of heat. For the workers, noon signals not just the height of toil, but also a pause, a moment of release, however brief, from the rhythm of stone and rope. The overseers call out, their voices softer than in the morning, for even their authority bends under the weight of the midday sun. Tools are set down carefully. Copper chisels, worn smooth from repeated blows, are placed beside baskets of chips and dust. Wooden mallets, their handles polished by countless hands, are leaned against shaded walls of unfinished stone. Groups of men walk slowly back toward the village, their steps dragging not from laziness, but from sheer exhaustion. Sweat traces pale paths through the dust on their arms and faces. A few carry jars of cool Nile water, wrapped in damp cloths to preserve the freshness. Others clutch clay cups filled with the thin beer that has become their daily sustenance. The bread, coarse and heavy, is pulled apart by calloused hands, and shared with deliberate care. One man bites and chews slowly, as if the rhythm of eating itself allows his body to forget the pounding rhythm of labor. Some seek shade under the few scattered shelters built of reeds and mud, where the air is no cooler, but at least the glare of the sun is dimmed. Here, conversation flows in hushed tones. They speak of families, wives who weave linen by the river, children who laugh and splash in the Nile, elders who remember floods greater than the present. Their words drift lazily, carried by the heat, dissolving into silence between sentences. Rest is not only of the body, but of the voice. Farther from the noise of the group, a small number of men wandered toward the water channels that snake in from the Nile. They dip their feet into the shallow currents, sighing as the coolness reaches their skin. One scoops a handful to wash the dust from his face, watching as the grains swirl and vanish downstream. Another traces patterns in the mud with a stick, as if to remind himself that creation need not always come with pain and effort. In the distance, a lone musician takes up a simple reed flute. The notes are thin, almost fragile, yet in the silence of the midday lull, they spread like water across the desert. The melody carries memories of festivals, of temples and priests, of harvests when the granaries overflowed. A murmur rises from those who listen. Some close their eyes, imagining fields of grain or the coolness of shaded courtyards. The music, though faint, seems to soften the hardness of the day. Children of the workers, not yet old enough for toil, play at the edges of the village. They chase each other through dust, throw pebbles into the air, and laugh without restraint. Their joy, unmarked by stone and lash, contrasts with the stillness of the men who watch them. A father smiles faintly, as if his child's laughter were a shield against the heat. Another shakes his head, knowing that one day those small hands will hold ropes and hammers. For now, at least, innocence remains. When the meal ends and the shade no longer cools, many lie back on reed mats or the bare earth. They close their eyes, not fully asleep, but drifting in that strange stillness between waking and dreams. In their half-slumber, they see visions of endless sand, of stones rising higher than thought, of gods watching from above. Some hear echoes of ancestors, others imagine the laughter of the river. The world slows. Time itself seems to hesitate, as if the sun has stretched the hours to eternity. Gradually, the overseers begin to stir. Their voices rise again, gently at first, then sharper. The respite, though precious, cannot last forever. One by one, workers rise from the ground. They brush sand from their limbs, tighten cloths around their waists, and gather tools once more. The sun still blazes, indifferent to their return, but something has shifted. Bodies, though weary, now carry a trace of renewal. For even the smallest pause, an hour of rest, a sip of water, a fragment of song, can breathe life into labor without end. And so, as shadows begin to shorten once again, the men march back to the unfinished pyramid. Their voices are low, their steps measured, but they carry with them the memory of shade, bread, and fleeting music. The desert resumes its endless hum, and the pyramid, silent and waiting, stands ready to claim their strength once more.
The heat of the day pressed heavily upon the pyramid plateau. By the 5th hour after sunrise, the limestone blocks shimmered beneath the blazing sun like enormous slabs of white fire. The workers knew this moment well. It was the time when every breath felt thicker, every muscle heavier, and every step more deliberate. The air was filled with a low chorus of sighs, groans, and chants, each sound rising and fading like waves against the eternal desert. At the base of the pyramid, men prepared another block for transport. This stone had been cut and shaped days before, its edges smoothed with patient strikes of copper chisels. Now it lay upon a sturdy wooden sledge, bound tightly with ropes made from twisted papyrus fiber. The overseer, standing tall with his staff, raised his arm to give the signal. A whistle pierced the air, and dozens of men leaned forward, bodies straining in unison. Their bare feet dug into the dampened sand, their hands gripping the thick ropes as though their lives depended upon the stone's forward motion. Slowly, almost unwillingly, the block began to slide. The sound was harsh, a deep grinding groan of rock against wood, mixed with the hiss of sand pressed beneath its weight. Men poured water ahead of the sledge, turning dry grains into slick mud, easing the path. Step by step, the block moved forward, inch by inch as sweat poured down the backs of those pulling. Faces twisted in silent struggle, lips murmured prayers to unseen gods, and in the shadows of the half-built pyramid, the block crept closer to its destined ramp. Above, other teams worked tirelessly on the rising layers of the pyramid. There, stonecutters struck with precision, the rhythm of their copper chisels echoing like a steady drumbeat. Each tap carried both labor and devotion, for every strike brought them nearer to a structure that promised eternity. Dust floated in the air, shimmering in the sunlight, as if the very breath of the desert had become part of their toil. Along the ramps, the scene was one of ceaseless coordination. Men pushed, pulled, shouted, and sang in rhythm. The songs were not of joy, nor of sorrow, but of endurance. Low chants meant to steady the heart and guide the muscles. Forward, steady, pull as one, the voices hummed, until the words themselves lost meaning and became pure sound. Together, they turned human frailty into a force strong enough to move mountains. In the distance, a woman and her child arrived with jars of cool water. They offered the drink to weary men who paused only for a moment before returning to their ropes. The child stared in awe at the massive stone as it inched its way upward, too young to grasp the magnitude of what these workers were shaping, yet old enough to feel the weight of history in motion. For that child, the pyramid was not a tomb, not a symbol of power, but simply the place where his father and uncles disappeared each day into a world of endless effort. As the afternoon wore on, shadows lengthened across the desert floor. The stone, once at the base, now rested halfway up the ramp. The workers collapsed beside it, their bodies trembling from exertion, their breaths ragged, their eyes glazed with fatigue. But even as exhaustion claimed them, there was no rebellion, no despair. Instead, there was an almost sacred acceptance. Each man knew that this stone would outlast him, that it would stand in silence long after his bones turned to dust. To carry such weight was to carry eternity itself. When the sun finally sank low on the horizon, turning the sky into a burning ocean of gold and crimson, the block reached its appointed place. With careful guidance, the men eased it into alignment with the others, tapping it gently until it fit with near perfection. Then silence fell. The chants ceased, the tools quieted, the ropes lay slack. For a moment, the workers stood in awe, staring at what they had raised, not just a stone, but a step toward forever. Night crept slowly, wrapping the pyramid site in cool darkness. Fires were lit in the workers' village, their smoke curling upward like offerings to unseen gods. The men sat together, eating bread, drinking beer, and speaking softly of the day. Some laughed faintly, others fell into silence, their eyes heavy with sleep. The great pyramid loomed in the distance, unfinished, yet already magnificent. Its shadow stretched across the desert, a reminder of all that had been given and all that would still be demanded. And so the workers drifted into slumber, their bodies broken, yet their legacy unbroken. The pyramid would rise, layer by layer, stone by stone, memory by memory. For them, there was no choice but to endure, for the weight of stone was nothing compared to the weight of time.
As the Nile winds into the twilight, the workers return to their modest homes. The desert air grows cool, and silence wraps itself around the unfinished stones. The pyramid, half shadowed, half golden in the setting sun, seems less like a monument of men and more like a question whispered by eternity. Who truly were these builders, and what dreams did they hide within the stones they left behind? Would you, if you listened closely enough, hear their voices still?